This is Gun and Butter, true crime stories told by your favorite cousin, Kinda G.
That's what it's all about. Guns and butter, baby. You little dumb motherfuckers.
What's poppin', family? Welcome back to Guns and Butter with your favorite cousin, Kinda G. Listen, I got a lot of feedback off my first episode, and I'm very appreciative of my listeners and my supporters. I'm gonna take this time to go ahead and say, once I get this editing down, I'm gonna be nothing to be played with in this podcast industry. All right, honey? Just stay down to the come up. You gonna see. This week's case really spoke to me because these four youngins I'm going to be talking about today really reminded me of my brother and my cousins. And it kind of struck a chord for me because they are somebody's son, they are somebody's brother, and they are somebody's nephew. But the youngest guy in this case reminded me of my brother because growing up, there was just the three of us. My older sister, me in the middle, and then him. He's the baby and the only boy. I just feel like he spent a lot of time hanging out with older guys, or the people that he was hanging around with. He just felt like he always had a lot to prove. And because of that, he was always getting in trouble. Y'all ever looked up to somebody, even respected them, and just idolized them? And one day y'all get into some mess and you find out that this motherfucker snitched on you, and come to find out it's your own flesh and blood. In this week's lineup, we have our victim, 31-year-old Tom Maynard. Now, I couldn't find a lot of information on Tom, but I did find out that Tom had met his wife. I believe he was in the military as an engineer. You know how it is when you meet somebody and it's just love at first sight and y'all are just inseparable. It was pretty much like that. They got married very quickly, and shortly after marriage, they found out that they were expecting their first child together. Now, Tom was the type of man that was a provider. They were living in an apartment at the time, and he's like, I don't want to bring home a baby to this little old apartment. So Tom went out and he purchased their first home for their growing family. We have our suspects and co-defendants. These are two sets of brothers. Bobby Smith, who is 20 years old, Anthony Smith, who is 19, and we have the oldest, who is Larry Jackson. He's 25, and we have his little brother, our murderer, Shelton Jackson. Now, Shelton was one of 8 children. They say he grew up in a pretty toxic environment and poverty. He had separation and abandonment issues due to both of his parents, but he sustained physical and mental abuse from his mother. And his mother was pretty abusive. She couldn't read or write, and at the time she was on welfare. So imagine taking care of 8 children plus herself. And at this time, she was probably receiving about $200 a month. She was also on drugs. She was in and out of the house. So she was pretty incapable of taking care of these children at the time. So they were pretty much raising themselves, running the streets, out doing what they want to do. But Shelton was said to have been really sweet and sensitive. And anytime he seen his siblings getting punished, he would always go run and hide under the porch because he just could not stand to see his siblings getting whooped. It was around the age of 7 when Shelton started to get really attached to his mother. And it was also around this age when the school noticed that he had a learning disability. So he was put into a special learning program at the school. Now, a lot was happening for Shelton at this time. It was around this age when he also started to hang around his older brother, Larry, who was around 15 or 16 at the time. Now, Larry was in and out of trouble. He was said to be in the game rooms, which is probably where you go to like parlay and gamble. So he was gambling, he was drinking, he was doing drugs, and he was starting to get a reputation as the neighborhood thug. And at 15 or 16 years old, that's not a good reputation to have. Not to mention, you're doing a little bit too much to be 16 years old. Settle down. But let me just throw in there, this is about the age when you start, jumping off the porch and really starting to experiment. I guess you can say around 16 is when you start experimenting with a little weed and stuff like that. Shelton said one day he was hanging out with his brother, and his brother robbed the ice cream man. He just broke into the ice cream truck window and he told him, sometimes you just got to take what you want. Now, Shelton wasn't no spring chicken either. At the time that this case took place, Shelton had already been in 3 prior juvenile offenses. And one of them happened when he was getting bullied at school. So he goes home and he tells his brother, and he asks his brother for a gun. He ends up taking the gun to school. I don't think he was trying to do harm to anybody, but he was just trying to show the bully, like, look, This is what I got the next time you put your hands on me, all right? So, of course, because he takes the gun to school, he ends up getting arrested. But this was only one of the times that he got in trouble. On January 26, 1990, in Jacksonville, Florida, Tom Maynard and his wife, Lisa, bring their 8-day-old son to their brand new home. So they've been gone for about a week, and Tom's looking around the house. He's like, we need some groceries. We need some formula for the baby. So he's like, I'm going to run up here to the Publix and grab a couple things for the house. And his wife is like, okay. And at this time, it's around 9 p.m. So Tom heads to the Publix right up the street. So about an hour goes by and Lisa's looking around like, where could this man be? It's 1990. Lisa don't have no cell phone to call or text or FaceTime and see where Tom is on the fly like we can now. So I don't know at what point she files a missing person report, but I'm assuming later on in the night she would file a missing person report on Tom. So down at the other end of Publix, we have two sets of brothers, Bobby, who's 20, Anthony, who's 19, Larry, who's 25, and Shelton, the youngest, he's 17. So they walking around the Publix parking lot. Shelton has a gun on him and they like, look, we need a car. I'm sick of walking. We need to get home. We need to find a car real quick. So Shelton is like, all right, well, I'm going to go into the store real quick and I'm going to grab something for me and my girl to eat tonight. And he gives his gun to Anthony and he goes into the store. So while he's in the store, the other three boys see Tom walk into his car. Larry rolls up on him like, hey, you got a light? So Anthony pulls the gun out. They force Tom into the car. They put Tom in the back of the car with Larry, and Anthony's driving and Bobby is in the passenger seat. You know what's so bad? We will never know how the victim is feeling in these murder cases. You don't know what I would do to know how Tom is feeling right now, sitting in the back seat with these niggas. So when Shelton comes out of the store, Larry's like, hey man, come the hell on. We gotta go. Hurry up. So Shelton hops in the car and they take off down the street. They like, we finna rob this man. So they get his bank card and they go to the ATM and they pull out about $260. And at some point in time while they're driving, Anthony says Larry's name. Nobody says nothing because they like, did this nigga really just say this man's name? Man, Larry is hot at this point. And Larry is already on parole and he like, don't nobody in the hood have the name Larry but me. So if word gets around that we did this, they gonna know exactly who to look for first. So Larry is like, we gotta pop this man. He gotta go. Now Larry is the oldest one. He the OG. He the one everybody looks up to and respects. So they're like, all right, we gotta do this. So they drive to the back of the Hollybrook Apartments. Now the Hollybrook Apartments are a place where you can hide a dead body. There's been some bodies there before, and it's because it's surrounded by a lot of wooded area. So it's known for people to do some hot shit around these apartments. So when they get there, everybody gets out the car and Larry's like, make this shit quick, nigga. They tell Tom to lay down and they empty out his pockets, his wallet, his ID. They even take the man's wedding ring. Now, Shelton is the youngest. He got a lot to prove and Larry is his big brother. So whatever he said goes. So he takes his gun, he aims it at Tom and he looks away. And while he's aiming the gun at him, Tom is begging, he's pleading, he's screaming for his life. Please don't do this. I have an 8-day-old baby. Please, I just want to go home to my wife. Whatever you want, you can have it. Please, please don't kill me. Shelton fires the first shot, but Tom is still alive. He's still screaming, please don't shoot me again. Please don't do this. Please, please. And Anthony's like, nigga, what the fuck? He takes the gun. He aims it at Tom. He fires the second and fatal shot in Tom's head. The four of them get back into Tom's car and they peel off. Early the next morning on Saturday, January 27th, Tom is found face up in front of a pumping station with 2 bullet wounds. The cops don't find any ID or a wallet on him, but this is a white man found dead in the hood. They working expeditiously right now. They hurry up and see if there's a missing person case filed on him. And they find a case that matches the description of Tom Maynard. They quickly notify his wife of what's happened to him. By the time they tell her what happened, she already kind of was preparing herself for this because he had been gone for too long. She hadn't heard from him and she just expected the worst. So she's like, where is his car? He didn't walk to Publix. So they look on the security footage and they see him at Publix going to the ATM and going into the store. They also see on his bank records that around 10:30 p.m., $260 was withdrawn from his bank account. Not that y'all did all of this for $260. So divided between the four of you, that means y'all got $65 split evenly. Come on now. So their first mission is to track down this car. So they get an anonymous tip from a woman who has seen the car on the news, saying that she's seen two boys and a woman that she knew getting out of the car up in Washington Heights. And that's how you know niggas be young and dumb, because y'all killed this man and you still riding around in his car like nothing happened, and like the police are not going to connect y'all to this crime. So on January 30th, they pull up to this apartment complex where the car is parked. The car is parked in front of Pamela Smith's apartment. So they take Pamela down to the police station and they start questioning her. Come to find out that Pamela is Larry's girlfriend, but Smith, look, she got the Smith last name. She's also Bobby and Anthony's sister. So she tells them that Larry told her that Shelton shot a guy a couple nights ago and her brothers were with them. So while she's getting interviewed, Shelton and Larry bring their ugly asses down to the police station because I guess their sisters had also been detained at the police station. So they go down there to try to get their sisters. The cops are like, oh, y'all made this too easy for us. And of course, they got arrested on the spot. So the cops quickly track down Bobby and Anthony. And once they get them, now all four boys are placed under arrest. So while they're getting interrogated, three of them, Shelton, Bobby, and Anthony, they ain't saying nothing. They wasn't there. They didn't have nothing to do with the crime. They're innocent. Larry, on the other hand, in there talking his ass off. He like, look, my little brother Shelton, he the one that shot the man. And it's like, damn, Larry, you the oldest one. You the one who's supposed to be the OG. You supposed to stick to the street code. We ain't saying nothing. We ain't heard nothing. We ain't seen nothing. And most importantly, where my lawyer at? But your ass in here running your mouth. Look what you did. Got your brother locked up. So all three co-defendants made statements implicating Shelton as the shooter. Plus, Shelton admitted to being the one who fired the first shot. Plus, it was his weapon that was used to shoot Tom. So he was seen as the mastermind and the person responsible for this heinous and gruesome crime. And originally, they were seeking the death penalty until they all entered pleas to testify against Shelton. So Shelton was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and 2 counts of armed robbery. Listen, my ass would have been like, kidnapping? Oh, hell no. Since we snitching, it was Larry, Bobby, and Anthony. They was the one that told the man to get in the car. I didn't do nothing. I was in the store getting food for me and my girl. I ain't had nothing to do with that kidnapping. But when it was all said and done, he was convicted of first-degree murder and he was sentenced to 4 life sentences. Larry was sentenced to 35 years after his plea deal. He was released in 2004 after serving just 14 years. Bobby, who was 20 years old at the time, he was sentenced to 25 years and he was released in 2002. Anthony, who was the second shooter, 19 at the time, he's 50 now. He was sentenced to life in prison. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Hulu series Kids Behind Bars, Life or Parole, but in 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that juvenile life without parole sentences were unconstitutional. So after serving 30 years, Shelton was granted a resentencing hearing. And that is our story on our victim, Tom Maynard. So now is part of the show where I give you guys my take on what happened.
You know the problem with you little niggas? You think you know everything about the damn world. You don't know shit.
I think everybody was pretty scared. They were young. They went ahead and confessed and were truthful about what happened. So I don't really have to give you guys my take on what happened because based off of everybody's testimony, they were all telling the same story. So it seemed pretty truthful. So being that in 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that juvenile life without parole sentences were unconstitutional, I want to pose a question. Do you guys think that Shelton should be released after serving 30 years? Here's my opinion. I think that he should be released because at the time he was 17, he was listening to his older brother. He didn't really have a mind of his own and he was just following the crowd, and we do know that he has a learning disability. So we know he's missing a few screws. But I also think it's insane that at the age of 17, he was sentenced to 4 life sentences. I wonder if he would have been sentenced differently if he had killed another black person. But I want to give him his credit. While he was serving his 30 years, he did learn to read and write, and he got his GED. He also did not get in trouble the entire time he was in prison. So for 30 years, imagine keeping your record clean while you were in prison. And to me, that just speaks volumes to the type of person that you are. Being able to stay out of trouble while you're locked up, that says a lot. And he's actually took accountability for what happened. He's not denying what he did, but he's just saying, okay, I was 17 years old. We all made mistakes when we was teenagers. And I just think that 30 years is punishment enough. I think that, as a child, when you do something like this and you get punished, you learn from your mistakes. And let's not forget that he did shoot the first shot, but it wasn't the fatal shot. I think that he's learned. I think that if he was released, he will be, a better member of society. And isn't that the whole point of being incarcerated? To correct or to punish wrong behavior? But my next question is, do you think he should forgive his brother? Shoot, in my opinion, if my brother snitched on me, I don't know if I'd be able to forgive him. This was an innocent man with an 8-day-old child who will now never get to know his father. He had a brand new wife, and I just don't know if I'd be able to look at my brother the same, really, truthfully. Because at the end of the day, we flesh and blood. You should have let the detectives do their freaking job. You didn't have to snitch on me, nigga. Especially if he was the one calling the shots. Nah, man, I think you need to take the rap for this one. But at the end of the day, if I'm taking accountability, I couldn't do nothing but accept the fact that I did it. I was wrong, and I was the one who was listening to him, and I had every opportunity to walk away. But it was my decision to do it. So I'm taking accountability for what I did. And I think that I would be able to forgive my brother. I don't know if we'd be able to be tight or be at the family functions just kicking it, but I would forgive him. Only on the strength that that's my brother. That's it. As far as the other two, Bobby and Anthony, yeah, we was homeboys at the time, but y'all asses both testified against me. I don't want to be friends with y'all. I don't want to kick it with y'all. I don't want to skate with y'all. I want to see you. Nothing. But that wraps up my second episode on guns and butter.